The anvil is a major component of your impact wrench. It is the piece that the socket is attached to. The hammer strikes the anvil, creating the torque to secure or remove fasteners. Over time, the anvil can wear, both where the hammer strikes it and where the socket attaches. Replacing the anvil is a repair that you can do yourself, and I'm going to show you how.
Hi, I'm Mark Socha.
Do-it-yourself repairs like these are easier than you might think. From lawn machines to cordless drills, kitchen mixers,
Outdoor grills.
our how-to videos walk you through each repair from start to finish. So doing it yourself means never having to do it alone.
Let's get started.
I'll begin by removing one half of the housing. I'll cut the label at the rear of the housing, and then I can separate the two halves. Now remove the two screws that secure the front housing to the plastic housing. With the screws removed, I can lift the motor and gearbox assembly away from the lower housing. Now I'll pull the brush springs away from the brushes. And with the tension off of the brushes, now I can separate the motor away from the brush ring. With the motor and gearbox assembly removed, I can separate the armature from the gearbox. Now I'll remove the impact and anvil assembly from the housing. Now I'll separate the anvil from the hammer and remove the bearing and washers. Now I can begin installing the new anvil. I'll need to transfer the friction ring and O-ring from the old anvil to the new. To remove the friction ring, I'll use a pair of retaining ring pliers. I'll use the pliers to open up the friction ring and pull it away from the anvil. I'll use my pick to remove the O-ring. Now reinstall the O-ring and the friction ring. Now I can replace the washers. I'll place the first washer onto the anvil, followed by the bearing. I'll apply a little more grease to the bearing and install the second washer. And I'll place the anvil assembly back onto the hammer. Now I can reinstall the housing. I'll place the housing over the impact assembly, aligning it with the anvil. At the base, these tabs fit into the notches on the housing. Now I can reinstall the motor assembly to the gearbox. Now I can reinstall the motor and gearbox assembly back into the housing. I'll slide the commutator through the brush card and then place the brush springs back over the brushes. Now I'll align each of the components with the housing. The notches on the field need to align with tabs on the housings. You should have one notch pointing straight up. Also, I'll be sure to align the brush card. And then I'll tuck the brush card wires the rest of the way into the housing. And now I'll reinstall the housing. Now reinstall the screws that secure the gearbox to the motor housing. And And that's all it takes to install a new anvil in your impact wrench. Be sure to check back often for new videos and expert advice. If you found this video helpful, give us a thumbs up.
And leave a comment.